Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I hope you'd be having a great time. This is Muhammad Imran. In this lecture, we will learn how to write a book review. If you want to know and practice what is a book review, how to write a book review, and what are the main steps in writing a review for a book or a novel, so don't miss this lecture. Let's begin our lecture and discuss in detail how to write a review for a book. Introduction and understanding a book review. You have just taken a journey, maybe you went back in time or visited a foreign land. Perhaps you fought dragons, danced with royalty, and conquered evil. How did you do these wonderful things? Now you read a book, of course, because doing these all things are possible by reading a fictional book, such as a novel. So you think that all your friends should visit the world in the book you have just read, because you have read a book or you read a novel, you read a short story, and you visited some wonderful land and you met some wonderful people, right? And you had some great time or great pleasure. Now you want your friend should also visit the same place and they should also meet the same people and they should also do the same things as you did. So you will do what? You will recommend this book to your friend by making a review or writing a review for the book. So you can show your friends this world by writing a book review. When you write a book review, you will tell your friends, you will tell your colleague, you will tell your audience why they should read this book or what they can do by reading this book, what they can see or who can they met, right? So in this workshop, you will write a book review about a young adult novel. You will summarize the book and tell whatever you think it's worth reading. You're going to tell your readers, you're going to tell your audience why this book is worth to read or why this book is important to read or what are the expectation your readers should make by reading this book. So it's like a kind of recommendation you are giving to your friends, you are giving to your audience, or you are giving to general public, right? So you will write a review and you will take the people in the time, like back in the time or like in future time, or you would take them to the land they have never visited. You will take to the time they have never seen because they were not born in that time. And you would meet such people that they never met in their entire lives. So that's why that you, when you write a book review, you have to be very, very careful and you have to take in mind who are your audience, right? What is the purpose of writing review for this book, right? And how the readers would take interest in reading this review of particular book. So we will discuss steps for writing a book review in coming slide. I hope you take interest and you enjoy this lecture. Preview of coming attraction. Once you have found several possible choices for your book review, so preview each one to make your final decisions. You may have several possible choices for writing a review. So you have to preview each book and make a final decision that which book you want to review. So one student preview Tuck Everlasting by Natalia Babbitt by following the step in the thinking aid through below. So what are the steps that the student followed? Let's discuss the steps now. Here we have a few steps to preview a novel. So why do you want to preview a novel? Because you want to choose one of the book and later on you want to review it for your audience. So the first step of the preview is look at the cover. Is there something that makes you interested in the book? So how you can write? The front cover has a mysterious pair of eyes on it. The back cover has a quotation that makes me curious about the book. Right? So you are just making a preview. Step 2. Read the book jacket summary. What does the summary tell you? The story is about a young girl who is kidnapped by a family who drank from a spring that let them live forever. Remember, we are talking about preview. So, what is review and what is preview? So, in order to review a book, you have to make a preview. That why do you want to review a book? Step 3. Skim some pages. Do you like the way the characters are shown? Do you see any interesting action taking place? So there are a lot of example of dialogue and I like to hear the character talking. Somebody escaped from jail. Now consider what you have found. Does the book look interesting? Do you want to know more about the character? Yes. I want to know more about these characters and I think that there is a good choice for me. So after preview a few books, then you have to choose one of them in order to review for your audience. So this is the thing which encourages you that you review such and such book. For example, if you say yes, I want to know more about these characters and I think that this is a good choice for me. So finally, you are going to choose this book to review for your audience. So these are some of the fundamental steps before you review a book. You have to preview it, right? Read your novel. Please note, as you read the book you have chosen, remember that you will be writing about it later. Read your novel that you preview and you want to review it now. Please note, as you read the book you have chosen, remember that you will be writing about it later. So you have to read the book now. Keep nearby a sheet of paper, divide into 3 columns. You have to make a paper and you have to keep like a paper in front of you and making 3 columns in that paper or that sheet. Label the column plot, setting and main characters. When you read a novel, when you read a book, what you have to do? You have to pick a sheet and make 3 columns, and in column first you have to write what? You have to write plot. In column 2 on the top you have to write setting, and in column 3 at the top you have to write main characters. Remember, you are reading a novel, you are reading a book that later on you are going to review it. So in order to review it, you have to make 3 columns on the top of a sheet, right? Now, fill the column by answering the questions at the top of the next page as you read. Now, I'll provide you some questions, right? You have to ask those questions from yourself and then you have to answer those questions in those 3 relevant columns. Include page number next to important note. If you're making note, you have to write page number because you might forget later on when you review it. So the page number will help you if you need to go back and reread some section of the novel. So let's see that what are the questions and how to answer those questions and how to put answer for each questions in the relevant column. Now in column first you write their plot, and column 2 you write setting, and column 3 you write main characters when you read a novel or when you read a book in order to review it. Plot. What are the key event of each chapter? Right? So you have to pick the key events in each chapter. So this is plot, or this is a summary of the novel. Second, what problem does the main character face? Here you will write in plot what are the problems faced by the major characters in the novel. And third, how is the problem solved? Right? How you will know the problem is solved? When you read a book, when you read a novel. So when you read a novel, you have to mention in this column what are the events of each chapter, because a novel may have 20 chapter, 30 chapter, 50 chapter, 60, 70, 100 chapters. So you have to pick that important events from each chapter and put them here. Second, what problem does the main character face? So this will be the problem, right, or the conflict the character face in the story. And how is the problem solved? You have to write also a problem solved. In the setting section, you have to write where does the story take place. Like for example, what is like the country name, what is the village name, whether it is at home, it's on the road, it's morning time, it's evening time, it is spring, it is autumn, right? And what is the mood, what is the tone. So you have to mention these all things where does the story take place. So the time and the place, right, and the environment. And when does the story take place? That is the time now. The first, where does the story take place? That is the place. And when does the story take place? Time. And third, how much time passes in the story? Like some of the stories may be covered within a few days, if a short story, and some of the stories of the novel, it may take you 20 years. 20 years doesn't mean that you will write, when you write a review or when you read a book, it will take 20 years. By 20 years mean that there you will see that the characters will develop. For example, in the first few pages, one of the character or major character would be a child one. And by the end of the story, the character may be a fully grown person, a married one. He may have children. So some of the stories will take a long time, like years. Some of the stories will take months, while short story will take even a single day or a few days. The third, main characters. What are the names of the main characters? What are their ages? And what does the character look like? How they look like, you will talk about their appearances. And what does the character like to do or play or eat? So that is their habit, right? What are their hobbies? What they like to do? What they don't like to do? What they like to play? What they like to eat. So when you put these all information right on the piece of paper, so when you review a book, that would be quite clear to you. And remember, you have to mention page number here with each event and characters and like a main character, setting and plot. So when you have these all data, all information, so later on you're going to review it. So it will help you when you review. So because if you read a book and later on you want to review, so some of the things you might forget. In order to remember the things what you read in a book, you have to make these three columns. And these three columns will help you a lot when you review the book you have just read. So I hope you got it. Now before you review a book, you have to do what? You have to think about purpose and audience? What is the purpose? Why do you want to review this book? And who will be your audience? So that is very, very important when you review a book. The big picture, you have read your book and are ready to tell people what you think. You have read a book and now you are going to tell the people that what you think about the book. Would you recommend it to the people or not recommend it to the people? Before you begin, think about the purpose of your book review. What is the purpose of this book review? Why do you want to review the book, right? Maybe you want to tell your friends to read it. Maybe you want to tell a librarian to pick the book and keep it in library. You might recommend it to parents that let their children to read the book. So what is the purpose you review this book? The people who will be reading it, right? So this is also important, that who will be your audience, whether your audience are children, they are adult, they are student, general people, educated people, highly educated people. Who are your audience? Your purpose for writing a book review will be closely linked to your audience and to their purpose. So that's very important, that your purpose for reviewing a book review will be closely linked to your audience when you review a book and their purpose for reading the review. Maybe they're reading this, the purpose is to pass their exam, right? To prepare for examination purpose, or just for pleasure. Here are some questions and possible responses to help you think about your audience and their purpose. So how you think about your audience and your purpose, let's discuss it in coming slide. Who is the audience for my review? You have to think before you review a book that who is the audience for my book review. Your audience may be your classmate, your audience may be community librarian, your audience may be parents, and your audience may be gift shopper. Why might these people read my book review? Why my classmates want to read this review of the book? Or why like community librarian read my book review? Or why parents and why gift shopper? So the third one is, what type of information might interest my audience? Let's discuss one by one. For example, who is the audience for my book review? For example, the audience for my book review is my classmate or my classmate. Some of my classmates are the audience for my book review. So why might these people read my book review? What would be the purpose? To decide whether to read the book or not to read this book. So if the audience are my class fellow, so the purpose would be to decide whether to read a book or not. What type of information might interest my audience? What is the book about? You have to think, you have to tell them what is this book about. Because they want to read my book. And who are my audience? My classmates. Second, if my audience are community librarian, so what would be the purpose? To decide whether to get a book for the library or not. So this would be the purpose. What type of book is it? I have to tell them what type of book is this. Is it like a novel? It's like a short story? It's like biography? It's like autobiography? Or it's like a book about some information about some celebrity, or like something like related to a course content book? What is it? Now, mystery book, for example, fantasy, western, journal fictions, and so on. If my audience are the parents, so why might these people read my book? Parents, to decide if a book is right for younger readers. The parents will decide if the book is appropriate to be read by my children, and how easy or difficult is it to read. If, for example, the book is for children, so the parents will tell whether it's easy or read for their kids. So I have to keep in mind these all things. Gift shopper, if the audience are gift shopper to decide whether to buy a book as a gift or not, and how much does it cost. So these are very relative information, very relevant information. When you review a book, you have to keep in your mind audience. Who are the audience? Class fellows, community librarian, parents, or gift shopper. You have to tell them how much does it cost. You have to tell them how easy or difficult it to be read. You have to tell them that what is the book about. Or you have to tell them what type of book is it, right? And for example, this is the purpose to decide whether to read a book or not. So you have to concentrate this page a lot. Think about it when you review a book, and you have to keep in your mind the audience and the purpose to review a particular book. So this page and these slides will help you a lot when you review a book, and you keep in mind your audience and the purpose for review such and such book. Now, the audience for the review of the Tuck Everlasting will be the student's classmate, because it is like a story. So their purpose for reading will be to decide whether to read the book themselves. So we know that who are the audience of the book Tuck Everlasting. It's a story, right? It's a novel. So who will be the audience? Class maths, right? And what would be the purpose? Reading will be to decide whether to read the book themselves or not. So we have learned that who are the audience and what is the purpose in order to let them to decide to read a book or not. So this audience will probably want to know what the book is about. Also, they want to know what's the book about, but not how it ends. They might also be interested in knowing how easy or difficult the book is to read. So you have to answer these all questions. Whether is it difficult or easy to be read? You have to tell them, okay, that how this book is interesting. You don't need to tell them how it ends, because they are not interested in the end of this book, right? Gather and organize detail. You get the idea. If you want people to read the book you have chosen, you need to say more about it then. If you want that the book you have just chosen to review and you want the people should read it, you have to do something about this. For example, it's a good. You have to say it's a good book, because if you say it's not a good book, so the audience may not take interest and read it, right? You have to say it's a good book. You need to give them a summary of the book, because if you give a summary in an interesting way, your audience may take interest and they would read the book you recommend for them. So it's important to give them a summary, a short summary of the book. A summary of a piece of writing include only the key ideas of the piece. So you have to give them what are the important events or key idea in the piece of work. When you summarize a novel, you will briefly retell the important event. So of course, when you summarize the book, you have to tell them what are the important events that take place inside the story. So in this way, would you make a summary interesting? You tell your audience how good is this book, so they will take interest and they will read it. Now there is more to say the story. If a story were plot alone, it would not be much fun to read, because the audience may not take only interest to read the plot, to read the story. Readers will be more interested in plot events if they know something about the people. So, characters are also very, very important because if you just tell them, recommend a book, it's about the story, so they may not take interest until and unless you tell them about the interesting people you visited and you met in this book. It's important to tell them, okay, something about the people and places involved because they may have not gone to the places you mention in this book. When you write a summary, include a descriptions of the characters and the setting. Who are the main characters and what is the setting of the story? Because in setting, you will tell them the time, the place, and sometime also you will introduce the major characters and also the characters. So the chart below consists example from Tuck Everlasting. Let's see the chart, an example of the Tuck Everlasting. So this is the chart. When you review a book, consider such things in your mind to mention. Character. You have to tell your audience that who is the main character and what is he or she like. How does she or he look like? The main character is Winnie. She is a spoiled only child who is bored and tired of being told what to do. So here we introduce the main character, that is Winnie. And what is he or she like? She is a spoiled only child who is bored and tired of being told what to do. So might be the parents tell her what to do, what not to do. So she's tired of such things. You have to tell your audience the setting, like where and when does the story take place. Tell them, audience, the novel is set in 1880 in the village of Tragab. So this is the place, right? Village of Tragab. And this is the time, 1880. So you see that your audience may take interest because they are going to 1880, 19th century. And they're going to the village Tragab they have never gone to. So it's important to tell them the time and place of the story. Plot. What problem does the main character face? Winnie has to decide if she should keep the Tuck's secret, the fountain the Tuck drink from, that, and give them eternal life. She decides to help them, helping them make her brave. So how does he or she deal with the problem? Two things are there in the plot. What problem does the main character face? Winnie has to decide if she should keep the Tuck's secret. This is the problem. How does he or she deal with the problem? The fountain and the tube drink from that give them eternal life. So this is okay now. How to deal with the problem? She decides to help them, helping them make her brave. So this is okay how she deals with the problem. You have to tell your audience, okay, what the problem does the main character face and how does the main character deal or try to solve the problem. Identifying the element of a plot. So what are the element of a plot? It's important that you have to know when you review a novel. Once upon a time. Most fairy tales begin with once upon a time and end with happily ever after. So the plot is usually easy to follow. Novels, on the other hand, usually have a more complicated plot. However, they too follow a plot pattern. So this is once upon a time. Most often we see in short story. So a plot has a little bit complicated. The novel has a little bit complicated plot, but it's similar to the short story. Let's discuss what are the main or major elements of a plot. You need to know because you're going to review a novel. Most stories begin with the basic situations in which you learn about the characters and the setting. So this is the setting of the novel. right? That most stories begin with the basic situation. What is the situation? In which you learn about the characters and the setting. The main characters usually run into a conflict problem early in the story. So this then would be the conflict. So the first element would be basic situation like setting. The second would be conflict. This is the element of like a plot. Third, this problem set in motion a series of event or complication. So after conflict, we will have some complication that make up the action of the story. Because if there aren't any complications, so the story won't develop. So conflict is important because without a conflict, we won't have a story. And then a story only develops if there are complication. If there is no complication, the story will end soon. All of these events build to a high point, the climax. What is climax? That is the most important event in the story. Here the readers and the audience, they are excited. What to happen next, right? Climax. So the climax is the most exciting moment in the plot. And following the climax is the resolution or outcome. In this part of the story, we see how everything works out for the main character. So a plot line help you figure out all the important steps of a plot. Below is an example of a plot line or for Tuck Everlasting. So what is the first element? That is situation. You need to know in order to review the novel. What is the conflict? What is the main issue? You need to know. And how the issue gets complicated. There will be problems and the story will get complicated now, right? And then there will be climax, the most important part of the story, right? And then there will be resolution and how the character deal with the conflict and solve complication. And now we have the end of the story. So let's see the plot line in the next slide. Now this is a plot line. Winnie consider running away, right? This is the setting or situation. So this is basic situation. What happens in basic situation? Winnie considers running away. Why does she want to run away? Conflict. What is the conflict? Winnie discovered that the ducks drank from a spring that let them alive forever. They kidnapped her. So this is now the ducks and they kidnap her, and this is what is the problem, what is the issue, because she knows that ducks drank from a spring, right, that let them alive forever, so they kidnap her. This is the conflict. And what are the complications now? The ducks explain to Winnie why no one should know about the spring, because they do not want that other people know about the spring, because then they would also live forever. And evil stranger discover the secret. Mrs. Tuck accidentally kill the stranger. So if anybody knows about the secret, they're going to kill. This is complications. And then we have climax. Winnie and the Tucks help Mrs. Tuck escape from jail. This is climax. What happened next? You take interest. And finally, we have resolution that the Tucks continue to live forever. Winnie has a full life and never drinks from the spring. So here the problem solves. So when you are writing a review, you have to keep in mind these steps. What are the basic situation? What is the conflict? What are complication? What is the climax? And what is resolution? So this is setting. You can see conflict and complication are also called rising issue. Here we have climax at the top, and then solving the problems or towards resolution, and here then we have final conclusion. So this was all about how to write a review. So this lecture ends here, but this lecture will have part 2, and please keep watching part 2 of this lecture in order to understand part 1st. And in part 2 we will talk how to develop book review, and you would have some more information, you would have some more steps, and you would have some practical measure in writing a book review. So keep waiting for the coming lecture, and please put your comments and feedback and your positive feedback and your suggestions would be welcome all the time. Thank you so much.